Welcome to the Mortuary Masterclass, brought to you by the Champion Company, where preservation meets purpose and every step is part of your journey to safer solutions. This episode, we're exploring the birth of third-generation embalming chemistry and how a question asked decades ago helped shape the future of the prep room. Ever notice how some of the biggest changes in embalming don't happen with a new instrument or a revolutionary procedure? Sometimes they happen quietly in a laboratory. Most of us were taught embalming through the lens of chemistry. We learned how preservatives interact with tissue. We learned sanitation, fixation, cavity treatment, and restoration. And for generations, formaldehyde was at the center of those conversations. For good reason. The development of formaldehyde-based embalming fluids helped establish the foundation of modern embalming. It provided reliable preservation and helped funeral professionals care for families in ways that simply weren't possible before. The profession owes a great deal to that chemistry. But every profession evolves. The vehicles we drive change, the instruments we use improve, techniques advance, and over time, researchers begin asking new questions. That's exactly what happened at Champion. The company's first generation of embalming fluids focused on buffered controlled action, pH-balanced formaldehyde formulations. Those products helped establish a standard of excellence throughout the profession. Then came the second generation. Researchers began exploring the benefits of combining glutaraldehyde and formaldehyde in ways that created greater control over fluid reactivity, preservation, and sanitation. Products like PLX and DSON represented that next milestone in embalming chemistry. But eventually another question emerged. Could embalming chemistry move beyond formaldehyde altogether while still delivering the preservation, sanitation, and tissue reaction embalmers depend on every day? That question led to the development of what Champion called its third generation of embalming chemistry, Millenium and New Era. Now let's pause for a moment and think about the prep room. If you've spent any amount of time embalming, you've probably noticed that not all procedures create the same working conditions. Arterial injections have their challenges. But cavity treatment? That's often where embalmers find themselves working closer to concentrated chemicals. Aspiration, cavity injection, autopsy treatment, topical applications. Those procedures place us in direct proximity to the chemistry we're using. Researchers recognized that reality years ago. In fact, the original development of several New Era products focused on cavity treatment specifically because that area of embalming presented some of the greatest potential for chemical exposure. The idea was simple. If you're going to solve a challenge, start where the challenge is greatest. One result was Cavity 48. Now think about those difficult cases that seem determined to test every skill you've developed. Delayed embalming, extended refrigeration, trauma cases, advanced disease conditions, frozen or partially frozen remains. Cases where you're standing at the prep table evaluating the situation and mentally reviewing every tool available to you. Cavity 48 was developed as a multi-synergistic cavity fluid designed to provide rapid tissue reaction, strong preservation, sanitation, and deodorization without the use of formaldehyde in the formulation. What does that mean in plain English? It means we weren't looking for a replacement that simply checked a box. We wanted chemistry capable of performing in some of the most challenging situations embalmers encounter. The report notes that laboratory and field testing demonstrated rapid firmness and very little reaspirated fluid in difficult cases. And every embalmer listening knows exactly why that's important. When you've completed cavity treatment, the last thing you want is to revisit a case and discover more fluid than expected. Those practical outcomes matter. Now let's move from cavity treatment to restoration. Have you ever worked on a bruised area, a burn, or significant discoloration and wished you had a little more control over the outcome? Those situations often separate routine cases from challenging ones. And they're also where chemistry and artistry begin working hand in hand. That's where Crysine-Ultra enters the story. Unlike traditional approaches, Crysine-Ultra was developed as a formaldehyde-free formulation designed for bleaching, preserving, and cauterizing difficult tissue conditions. The formulation uses a combination of phenolic, alcohol-based, and hydroxylated aromatic chemistry to achieve rapid whitening and preservation effects. In practical terms, that translates into a product designed for bed sores, burns, bruising, necrotic tissue, localized swelling, and other areas requiring targeted treatment. Ever notice how some restorations don't require a miracle? They just require the right chemistry applied at the right time. Most experienced embalmers can tell stories about cases that initially looked impossible, but improved dramatically after thoughtful treatment. That's one of the things that makes embalming unique. Science gives us the tools. Experience teaches us how to use them. Another important addition to the New Era family was New Era Compound. Developed as a formaldehyde-free autopsy and viscera compound, it was designed to absorb fluids, provide sanitation, reduce dust concerns, and assist with preservation in challenging situations. This eliminates formaldehyde from one of the largest exposure areas in the prep room. Again, notice the pattern. We weren't focused on creating products for ideal conditions. We were focused on solving real-world embalming problems, because that's where innovation matters. Not in a brochure, not in a laboratory, at the prep table. So what does all this mean for today's embalmer? I think the lesson extends beyond any single product. The story of Millennium and New Era is really a story about professional evolution. One generation established the foundation, another generation refined science, and another explored a new pathway toward preservation while addressing concerns about prep room exposure. Each step built upon the one before it, not replacing it, building upon it. That's how progress works in funeral service. And that's how our profession continues moving forward. Every advancement begins with a question. Every improvement begins with observation. And every milestone begins with someone asking whether there's a better way. For embalmers today, that spirit of innovation remains just as important as ever. Because no matter how much technology changes, the mission stays the same. Providing dignified care, protecting our prep rooms, supporting our colleagues, and serving families with professionalism and purpose. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Mortuary Masterclass. Until next time, keep doing what you do best, championing the prep room with purpose, because embalmers matter, and every step forward is part of your journey to safer solutions. That's the champion difference.